My mission was then and is still to introduce you this technology and to give you a little bit of an idea what's all behind that and why I'm doing this, what I'm doing, and what the devices which we produce since nearly 30 years. I'm 28 years in this one and same business. The systems are in the 9th generation right now. So we have quite a history with all that topic, which we're going to cover today. And speaking of myself, because people always ask me how you going to end up in this business. Well, it happened 31 years ago that I got a really, really bad message because I got diagnosed with cancer. That was at the tender age of 26. You do the math and then you know how old I am nowadays. I was diagnosed with a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, stage 4. I was statistically 70% dead. And I didn't feel it. It hit me out of nothing. I was a professional athlete. I was playing hockey on ice. And like I said, I never felt anything. I can faithfully share this with you, which made it even harder at that time, because I was preparing for a weekend, for a game, and I felt a little knot on my hip. And I said, oh, that's not right, that shouldn't be there. And I went to the team doctor and he sent me to the hospital to do an ultrasound. And after the ultrasound, the doctor came to me and said, there is something inside, we need to take that out immediately, ASAP. So I couldn't even inform my parents at that time. They kept me in the hospital. They gave me an epidural, you know, and they cut off here on the side where the hip is, and they cut off a tumor with the size of a fist. And obviously it went to pathology for examination and for lab tests, and it turned out to be a stage 4 non-Hodgkin's, quite aggressive tumor. So I had to undergo a second surgery. They cut me off from here to here. They took off the entire lymph string. This surgery took about 12 hours, followed by a full stage of chemotherapy. The whole classical medical treatment lasted about 4 or 5 months. And after that, I lost about 80 pounds. And I was obviously not the same person than before. Not physically, not mentally, and also not spiritually, because I more or less, I didn't feel my body anymore, nothing. The interesting thing is when you suffer from cancer and after completing the classical medical protocol, they let you go, and they just let you go. And here you are. You know, you are 26. You look like a 14-year-old boy. That's how I looked like at that time because I lost so much weight. And so they just tell you, well, come after 6 months to do your tumor markers, your blood analysis. Every year we're going to do an MRI. We look into your bones and into your organs and see if there is any malignant progression, and then we take it from there. And that's a quite straightforward message. So here you are, you go out, and then the brutal thing is you live with this fear that the cancer will come back, which is quite natural. That's how human beings think, you know. And that fear is accompanying you 24/7. So somehow you have to find a way how to deal with that. And usually there are 2 ways. You just put it behind you. You try to not think about it, which a lot of people do, which is probably not, to my opinion, not the correct pathway, because it will always, you know, somehow will keep up to you, and it will always remember you. Whenever something happens in your body which you cannot track to a cause, you know, the cancer will knock on your door again and say, hey, maybe it's me. Take a look, you know. And this is exactly what I felt. And then I made a decision. I said, okay, I can't do this any longer. I have to become proactive. I want to know everything about this disease. Actually, I wanted to know why me, why I got it, which is unanswered till today. I don't know. I don't know it. I grew up in a small village in the Bavarian mountains, you know, with 800 people lived there, completely surrounded by nature. I had a pretty lovely childhood. I was outside every day. I was not attached to any chemicals. I was in sports. I did nothing which could cause a cancer. That's my opinion, you know, from what I till know today. But I still got it. And like I said, the question is still unanswered. So my doctor at that time who took care of me, I asked him also, why me? Where does it come from? And he said, if I would know it, I would get the Nobel Prize. That was his answer. So nowadays we know a lot more about cancer, 31 years after. But did something change in cancer therapy? Not really. Not really. We have a better survival rate. So people with the same cancer diagnosed nowadays than 31 years ago, they live longer. But not because the therapies are better, because we have better diagnostics. So we're going to detect the cancer earlier, and that increases the survival rate, statistically. In fact, when it comes to therapies, maybe the chemotherapy is a little bit less how to say, yeah, harmful, and it's maybe a little bit more pleasant to accept it, because 31 years ago it was a tough cookie, you know, it was really chemicals, it was bam, you know, and it really hit me. And so I started suffering from insomnia at that time because I couldn't sleep anymore. I was loaded with toxins. Stage 4 cancer, lost 80 pounds and cannot sleep anymore. That's death sentence usually. You know, and that's how I felt. I had days I woke up in the morning, I didn't want to stay alive anymore because I didn't feel there is a reason for this anymore. I didn't feel my body. I had no motivation to get out of the bed for what? This was me at that time, can you imagine that? And then I said, okay, I need to change something. I decided to become proactive. I learned about my cancer. And then I said, okay, what can I do myself? Becoming proactive to not allow this cancer get into my body, into my system anymore. So I went on a mission. At that time, anti-Google was not invented. You had to go to conventions, to lectures, to health fairs. You had to go to the libraries to read books. So it was quite an effort to get education at that time. But of course I was motivated because there was still a little spark in myself which always told me, don't give up. You are too young. You can't do that. You know? And so maybe 6 months, I was seeking something, mainly for my insomnia, because that was really troubling me a lot. And maybe somebody's sharing the same feelings than I had, suffering from insomnia. It's just unbelievable if you cannot sleep and you wake up in the morning, or you even didn't sleep at all, so you don't even need to wake up, and you have no energy in your body. You can't do anything. And so I met this guy in Austria on a conference, and he did a 1-hour lecture about PEMF, pulse electromagnetic field technology. And he hit me right in my face because he was telling to the people that the basic discovery that pulse electromagnetic fields have a health beneficial effect was discovered first when people get exposed to a certain field, that they started sleeping better. The prototype at that time was called the sleeping machine. And you're going to experience that the whole day. Just look on the back side where all these systems are laid up. If you take a look, most of the people, they fall asleep when they get introduced to PEMF, because it is kind of a sleeping machine. It puts people asleep. Also the ones who cannot sleep anymore, people like me, suffering from insomnia. So obviously I ordered one of these systems, and that was about 29 years ago, when, or 30 years, when these systems first appeared on the market for home use, so that people could buy it and use it in the comfort of their homes. And the guy told me, gave me a protocol. It was a cheap-looking square box. You could only adjust the intensity 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Obviously, intensity 10 was higher than intensity 1. That's what I figured out. You know, there was no timer built in. It was just a button 1, 0, 1, 0. So he told me, you lie on, it came with a whole body mat, which you see in the back here. You lie on it, you put it in the morning on intensity 5, you push the button, and you put your timer on 8 minutes. And then when the 8 minutes is over, you push the button to 0, and you do it another time in the evening on a low intensity, 1 for 24 minutes. And that's what I did. So I did this faithfully for 4 weeks. And you know what happened to me? 0, nothing. So I just spent $3,500, you know, that's about the currency exchange rate, 30 years ago for a device which was promised to do something with my insomnia, and after 4 weeks nothing happened. You could imagine, you know, I called this guy and I was not very amused, and I asked him to take it back. And he was obviously not so amused about that, so he started doing the pep talk to me. And he said an interesting thing, which still applies to all these kind of energy medicine modalities. He said, if you apply energy in comparison to chemistry, you have to be a little bit patient, because energy regulates, chemistry manipulates. So in order to regulate your entire organic system, it takes time. Especially if you suffer from something which already is inside you for a longer period. We know that as chronic. So, I said, how long? That's, you know, that's the question you ask. He said, frankly speaking, I don't know, but he really convinced me. He said, Wolfgang, it's gonna happen. Just be a little bit more patient. You know, he also said, your cancer didn't come overnight. Do you think a tumor with the size of a fist grows overnight? For sure not. You know, disease takes time, healing takes time. You know, and I didn't have all this education at that time, but I said, okay, I give it another try. So after 2 more weeks, bang. I had my first night sleeping through for 12 hours like a baby. I woke up in the morning, I will never forget this day, because this was the first day after months where I felt my body again. And I said, ooh, I feel good today. You know, I felt suddenly my spirit was coming back, talking to my organs. Hey, you're still awake, you still work. That's exactly the communication, what happened inside my body. And that, you know, was the ignition I needed to start believing in this. Sometimes people need to believe in something to make it work. We call this the placebo effect. Nothing wrong with it, okay? Placebo effect is good. It helped a lot of people. Just don't rely 100% on the placebo effect. Because otherwise, when it comes to PEMF, you could get rid of your back pain with your smartphone, which does not happen, and I will explain to you later. Okay? Because it also exposes an electromagnetic field. But it doesn't address your back pain, and we will cover this later on. But, you know, I felt my body again, and I said, okay, let's do this now. And during my research, I did nothing on the side. Obviously, I was a little bit more cautious with my diet. So I tried to eat really healthy. And I don't want to talk about food intake today, because we have 20 million different philosophies about what to eat and what to drink and what not. You know, everybody has to find her or his way. You know, for me and also for Veronica, my wife, we figured out moderation is the key and high quality is the key. You know, because at the end, the whole life, everything we are surrounded by, our organism, it's all about balance. A relationship, it's all about balance. A society, it's all about balance. So I believe in the fact that health and disease, it's all about balance. If you do too much of this and too less of this, you're not in balance. You know, so everything is about balance. So sometimes, you know, give yourself a good treat. You know, maybe it's not always super healthy, you know, but we also need some arguments in a relationship, otherwise we don't enjoy the good times. Because we don't feel what the difference is. We have to know what the difference is, you know, to appreciate it. And that's what it's all about, you know. And that's what I learned about energy medicine. Energy medicine is talking to a living organism with information. Does it make sense? We're not talking with chemicals. That's what the other people do. We talk with information. So when we talk about PEMF, we apply a summary of information which we try to excite the body to understand it and to do something good with it. That's energy medicine, no matter what you apply. You know, even if I talk to you and I hopefully excite you with the content I'm presenting to you, then this is energy medicine, because you will probably go out here with a good mood. Even if you invest your part of your Memorial Weekend. So you will always say it was worth the time. It's good. It's something positive. Otherwise, if I don't make it here today, and you say, he should better go to Switzerland again, with his nasty German English, then you will not feel so amused about it, because you didn't benefit from the energy. So you get that, right? And it's important to get that. It sounds so profane, but this is the basic of energy medicine. You know, sharing information, to do good things, you know, and to expect from the receiver that reacts in a positive way. Going back to me, obviously I was so intrigued about my personal results. I was so fired up by this technology that I started to do my own research. And I finally ended up deciding making a business out of it, sharing the wisdom, the experience, the knowledge that I experienced on my own and my story with people I was surrounded. And then I decided, I saw this unit which I bought, and I said, this looks really, really cheap. It was really cheap looking, I tell you. It was not, the design was not worth $3,500, maybe not even $350. But for me, it was worth millions. Because I believed in the fact that it saved my life, which I still don't know if it did, and I don't care because I'm here. I celebrate my 31st year of being cancer-free. You know, that's, and then, yeah, and I said, I need to come out with a more modern machine. This is me, you know, I'm a techie, I'm into design. And so I said, okay, I'm gonna make my first PEMF device. I had no idea about engineering. But do you know how this is when you are on a mission? You're gonna find the right people. And that's what I did. I found two engineers at that time. I approached them and I said, can you do this? Because I knew a lot about the properties, mechanical properties, electronic properties, and also therapeutic properties from science. Can you put this into the machine? Can you put this? Can you do this, this, this? They said, yeah, it's physics. We can do that, you know. And so the first machine came out. I think it was the year 1998 or 97, where I came out with my first self-developed device. And by the way, the two engineers started working with me a long time ago. They still are the engineers for the next generation coming up. So I work with these engineers since almost 3 decades. You know, the company who is doing the applicators for our systems is still the same company than 30 years ago. The company who is doing the electronics, the PCB boards, the signal generators which are built in, is still the same company than 30 years ago. So we build a strong bond of the people who I somehow gathered together to develop this, and we are still together today. And that's probably one of the success factors in our company, because we have a very sustainable supply chain, and I think we know what we are doing. So that's my story. And then in 2005, we started the adventure going to North America. First, we started in Canada. And like I said, 2006, here in California, in Ramona, was the first certification course. And then in 2011, we went to Asia, first to Singapore and then to Hong Kong. And then in 2016, we went to Australia. And meanwhile, we are a global acting company in the field of PEMF. And it is always our goal and my personal motivation to set the benchmark in PEMF, which we probably did with the new device, with the PEMF, with the IMRS Prime, which is the first PEMF unit which is completely programmed on Windows IoT. So that's engineering software. It's quite complex and comprehensive. And you have more or less a computer here. The big advantage, we can further develop the system in our facilities, and you can benefit from it because we can offer you upgrades for the system without buying a new control unit or whatsoever. So that's also the first time where we involve users in the development of the device, because we got a lot of feedback. We just came out yesterday with a new upgrade because you were blaming that the far infrared heat is too hot. Mostly the people in California, Florida, obviously. So we are thinking, shall we come out with the Florida edition, with you know, which is not so easy to do that, but it was easy for us to adjust the temperatures. And maybe we're going to do a winter edition and a summer edition in the future. Yeah, that's so cool about the system, because now we can react on that, and you can participate and benefit from this. So this is where we're at right now. And now I was thinking what I'm going to tell you today, because we have some people, they heard me already talking about PEMF, and then we have a lot of people, they never heard about this. So how are we going to get this together, that nobody gets disappointed, right? So there is this German phrase, which I translated into English, which says, putting the cart before the horse. I thought about, let's turn around the lecture completely. And the first thing I'm going to explain to you today is what PEMF does for you. What kind of benefit you get when you utilize PEMF. Because I know this is what you would like to know. Because most of the people sitting here, they have one or more issues and they want to get rid of it. And they probably didn't get rid of it yet because they didn't find the right tool to do it. So I want to know it, if this is for me, you know. And then, you know, these questions come up. I have arthritis. Does PEMF something for arthritis? I have migraines. Does PEMF something for migraines? I have, I don't know, a twisted ankle. 3 days ago, the tennis match. Does PEMF something for that? Those are the questions. So most of the questions are always related to a particular condition. And I have to disappoint you. Because PEMF is not designed to treat a particular disease. You're probably very disappointed now, right? Huh? It is not designed to, because it's energy. And you cannot, at least not now, the science doesn't give us the possibility to how to say, now I don't find the word. I have, I still think in German. That's the problem. To just make it customize a PEMF device specifically for arthritis, for this, for that, because on one hand, science doesn't allow it because we don't have all the science for particular diseases and PEMF, and also, and now it sounds so ridiculous, but it's the truth, compliance doesn't allow it. You know, if you wanna certify or get approved a medical device with the FDA, you know what you need to do? You need to approve it in combination with a certain condition. So in other words, if I would use our device, and for example, I know there are very sufficient studies for pain management. I would certify it with the FDA for pain management, and then I cannot use it for anything else. Because it is certified according to the intent of use. Does it make sense? Yeah. And that's what people always forget. We not only have a modality, a success with this and that, we have also regulation and we have compliance. And without regulation and compliance, we cannot market the medical devices. So that's a bummer, but PEMF can do much more than this because it's energy medicine, you know. And basically, the basic idea of energy medicine is to get the entire organism into a stage where it starts healing itself again. Does this make sense to you? So what PEMF does, and it really does it, is, you know, to give your entire body the necessary information so that it's capable of activating and increasing its own self-healing properties. And that's why these miracles happen with PEMF, which are then, of course, if you tell me that you, for example, get your migraine treated and it never showed up again, then you have your story with migraine and PEMF. But you have to understand, PEMF did never care about your migraine. It just tried to give you the information wherever energy is needed in your body, you know, to jumpstart the self-healing properties again. And believe it or not, nobody and nothing can heal you. Only your body can do it. And even if you take a drug, what you actually do is you don't heal something inside you. You actually manipulate parts of your organism. When it comes to drugs, you manipulate the receptors. There are little antennas inside, and you have all kinds of receptors in and around your cell, inside your entire organism. And what they do, they are always checking. Is there something which I know, which I recognize? And whenever I do, I grab it, and then I deal with it. We have, for example, receptors for pain. You know, and in order to address something to these receptors, we can do this in a chemical way. We swallow a drug, and the drug is containing of some compounds which can be understood by the receptor, and it inhibits it, and the pain is gone for a certain amount of time until it comes back. So that's not healing. That's manipulating. Because we more or less, we inhibit to feel a symptom. Pain is a symptom, it's not a disease. Don't mix it up, okay? Pain is the body is shouting at you, please help me, there's something going wrong. That's what pain is, okay? So inhibiting pain is not the solution. You know? And here we have something much more profound, which goes beyond our understanding of how we deal with health and disease. And this far beyond is that we're shifting energy inside your body to activate and increase, improve your self-healing capacities. And we hear about this miraculous healing of even of cancer patients. You know, nobody and nothing can heal cancer. Only the body can do it. Huh? And then we have these questions you probably never heard that somebody asked them. Ask your cardiologist. Do we have a cardiologist in the audience today? I would ask him directly. Fortunately not. Why there is no heart cancer? There is a very few genetically. There is a very few numbers of heart cancer whenever there is a genetic mutation. But do you know anybody suffering from heart cancer? Heart cancer more or less does not exist in this world. Do you know why? You should know it.
Electricity.
Energy. Your heart is the only organ inside you which is capable of creating its own energy. And that keeps the heart cell on such a high level that it will never turn into something malignant because it just has no time to do that. Leave me alone. I need to work here 24/7, constantly. Put the coal inside, you know, all the time, constantly, you know. I have no time to become malignant because I signed for this job and I do this 24/7. From day one you were born until the last day, until your last breath. You know, and the heart cell does not create any malignant situation because of energy. So, if we learn from this, we could say energy is something which our body obviously can benefit from it. So why not apply energy to the body? To all the other cells, to the skin cells, to the hair cells, to the liver cells, the kidney cells, you know? And that's exactly what it is. And this is, by the way, exactly what PEMF does. And for all the people who always wanted to know what PEMF, how you can benefit from PEMF, in about 5 minutes you can stand up and go home because you know everything if you have something better to do. If you want to know why it does what it does, stay here because they're going to explain that in a few minutes later. But you understand what I'm talking. It's very simple to explain the effects and the benefits of PEMF. And here it is. You know, we address, and that's what PEMF does, a certain content of information to the organism. So, to whom we address it? Well, we address it here to our smallest building block. So we address the smallest building block inside your organism. And this smallest building block is called the human cell. We have more or less 70 trillion of them. That's a lot, huh? And all those together, all these 70 trillion cells, they format an intelligent composing of tissue. The tissue forms the organs. The organs together form the organic system, and that's what we see in front of us. That's you, that's me, that's you. Responsible for that whole formation is our DNA, which is, by the way, inside here. Inside the cell, there is this little core, which is called the nucleus. And inside the nucleus, we have the DNA. And the DNA is nothing else than the software. It tells the cell what to do. Because basically every human cell is identical. And the DNA tells the cell to become a skin cell, to become a liver cell, to become a hair cell, whatsoever. You know? And basically, every human being is 99.9% identical. Isn't that interesting? So we differ from each other only by 0.1%. Knowing that we have billions and billions of DNA strings, it's still a lot, the 0.1%. You know? But this makes us unique. And because every person in this room and every person on this planet is more or less unique, it is also quite tough if somebody suffers from a disease to find the best cure for this particular person. Because every individual reacts differently. That's why invented clinical studies. And clinical studies, they do nothing else than they do tests with a certain amount of people, with the desired outcome that if you apply something, whether it's a drug or an energy or maybe a manual intervention whatsoever, that a certain amount of people, that they show the same results. And then we use probability, this is mathematics, that the more people are in the control group who are benefiting from this, and then we simply use probability and says, okay, if it benefits this amount of people, it will benefit mankind. This is how medicine works nowadays, which is not really accurate, right? Because you know, at the end, a treatment never addresses you as an individual. You know, it addresses you as one of many. And that's why often certain therapies, modalities, they fail, or they don't give the benefits you expect. And that's why the future of medicine is you. It's personalized medicine and not medicine with control groups. That's the next big thing, what we can expect in the next 10, 20 years. You know, that we have diagnostic modalities, that we have therapeutic modalities, which we address exactly to your you, to who is you, to your DNA, to your genetics, to your epigenetic reaction, and so on and so on. And maybe you heard this word many times already, genetic, epigenetics. That's the new big thing, it's coming up. And they already totally misinterpret everything. That's what, you know, because it's, you know, longevity. Everything is about longevity, right? Big business, longevity. And yes, it's justified. We can extend our lifetime if we do the right thing, you know? But we are far away from being in compliance with what we are sharing now with other people. And this is also a problem with PEMF. But finalizing this, what the PEMF system does for you. So usually your human cell, it contains of three important things. The membrane, that's the bubble here outside. You know, that's the cell membrane. Here we have the nucleus, and here inside we have these fellows, these pictures. They are called mitochondria. And these mitochondria, they do nothing else that then they transform the incoming fuel, the minerals, nutrients, the oxygen, into energy. And this energy is called ATP. Nothing to do with the tennis association. Adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine triphosphate is the stuff which we know as energy. And this is the stuff we need to thrive and survive. This is the stuff that our body needs to produce in order to think, to act, to move, to feel. Everything what our body is doing is run by energy. You know, the more energy you are able to produce, the better your body can deal with the daily tasks. Let's say it like that. You know, there is this bacteria coming in from hugging somebody. You know, if the body has a lot of ATP, a lot of energy, your immune system is in a good shape. So the immune system will immediately say, okay, this is not good for you, this bacteria. I'm going to send the troops right there, going to take care of it, and gone. You will not feel it, right? The same with, you know, an elite athlete. An elite athlete, to perform at the highest level, needs a lot of energy. ATP, more than an average person, right? So how is this ATP produced? Well, you need to have more minerals, more nutrients, more oxygen, because that's the fuel what the mitochondria needs to produce energy out of it. So an elite athlete has to take in healthy food, a lot of nutrients, a lot of oxygen, you know, a lot of movement in order to increase his personal energy production. And otherwise, will not perform on the level he or she expected. It makes sense, right? Right. So a lot of chemical processes are taking place here. And the chemical processes of transforming minerals, nutrients, everything what we eat, what we drink, every breath we take into ourselves, the oxygen, this is perfectly examined by science. We have so much science about the chemical processes in our cells. Everything is proven. What's not so well known is what happens energetically in each of our 70 trillion cells. Because you can probably imagine, in order for the cell to be able to absorb all these minerals, nutrients, all this oxygen, introduce it to the mitochondria, and then it will be transformed into energy, and then get rid of all the waste which is produced by the mitochondria during that energy making process. And that stuff needs to get out of the cell again. It's like an engine in a car. You know, you have the exhaust. So all the bad stuff, what is left when you introduce the fuel into your engine, which is then burned and gives you energy in form of movement. And you know, the bad stuff, the carbon dioxide and everything needs to go out to the exhaust. Otherwise, if it doesn't happen, the engine will not run anymore. And the same applies here. So in order to keep this cycle on a very, very high energetic level, the human cell needs energy. It needs energy to create and maintain this, we call it membrane potential, the cell membrane potential. And the cell membrane potential is even measurable potential in terms of physics is related to electricity. So believe it or not, your membrane of your cell is electrically charged. And responsible for that are these little bubbles here. We call them ions, I-O-N. And these ions, they have the capability, when you attract them with a magnetic field, they're gonna start moving. And when they're gonna start moving, inside, outside the cell, they create an electric potential. And this electric potential is called the cell membrane potential. And if this runs properly, do you know how we're going to call this whole process? Minerals, nutrients in, oxygen in, energy, metabolism. Thank you. Yeah? The entire process of metabolism is fundamentally initiated and driven, and now it comes, interestingly, not by chemistry, but by energy. So energy comes first, because if you don't have a membrane potential, the chemical processes, they cannot take place, because the absorption is not good. So the mitochondria, they get lost inside. They said, I have nothing to do here because you don't give me the fuel. You know, I cannot develop my 350 horsepower, which I usually do, because I don't have the right fuel. If we talk about real life, by the way, those are the people, when they eat supplements, and they don't do a thing for them. The reason why these supplements don't do a thing for them is not because the supplements are bad, it's because the supplements cannot be absorbed. Meaning your membrane potential is already below a critical benchmark where you cannot cleanly absorb them anymore. So what you do is you buy them, you pay for them, you swallow them, and and they go through your exhaust without creating an effect. Because they go not inside, they go around, and then they go out. So in order to perfectly absorb fuel, you need to make sure that your membrane potential is on a critical level, otherwise it's not working. And nowadays, this membrane potential can be even measured. There are laboratory devices, they can do this. You know, I can give you some numbers. A healthy cell has about a membrane potential measured inside. Inside is always a negative value because the ions, they have always, there are always more outside than inside. So it's minus inside plus outside. So the electric potential of a healthy, regular human cell is about minus 70 millivolt. Minus 70 millivolt. The average membrane potential of an elite athlete is about minus 100 millivolt, minus 100 millivolt. The heart cell, remember, we talk about our nice fellows who we can always rely on, you know. The heart cell has a membrane potential of about minus 120 millivolt, minus 120 millivolt. And a cancer cell is on average measured equal or below minus 35 millivolt. So there is a critical energetic benchmark whenever a cell cannot do its regular job anymore, and then it's sitting around and said, oh, I'm so bored, nothing to do. You know, I'm gonna create my own thing now. I'm gonna self-employ. And then the cell starts doing its own thing, which we know as uncontrolled growth. You know, and then a cancer develops. This will never happen with a human cell which is above this critical benchmark, because it cannot, because it has to work. It has to do its job. Does this make sense to you? Good, because if you understand this, you understand the basic of how we're going to approach energy medicine and what it actually does to you when you lie on such a system, or when you are exposed to any kind of energy you would like to do good for your organism. This is the reason here. So, I told you these ions, they only get excited if they get an impulse. They get a kick in their butts. Say, come on, move now. You know? And we do that without knowing this, with a trick, because we are utilizing the electromagnetic field of the Earth. Believe it or not. We are surrounded by an electromagnetic field which we don't feel, because we are not so sensitive as we always think. We are not capable of experiencing, feeling subtle energies, because we simply don't have the organs and the sensitivity to do that. That's why relationships fail, because we don't have the sensitivity to understand the other person. Right? And it's the same here. So, but we do this with a trick. When we move over the Earth magnetic field, and the Earth magnetic field is a quite boring field. It's quite static. It vibrates between 11.75 and 11.78 hertz. How do I know this? Science. There is a book, from a German guy, Klaus Bionzik. He wrote a book about the lattice structure of the Earth magnetic field. Quite interesting book. I would recommend this to you. It's quite, yes. Yeah. It's available as an ebook online in English. It's quite interesting. It's the lattice structure of the Earth magnetic field. I think if you Google that, you will get a hit on a website from this guy. He's a German mathematician. It's a brilliant book, and it's quite scientific. I tell you, it's a challenge to read that, and that's why probably it's not very well known. Because again, you know, if you don't have the education, it's quite hard to read such a book. But it's fantastic, you know. And he more or less calculated this. So it's not something which is, it should be roughly between this. No, it's calculated with math. 11.75 to 11.78. Why from 2? Because it looks like that the carrier frequency of the Earth magnetic field is not 100% equal at the magnetic poles comparing to the equator. But it's quite equal. It's only a marginal difference. And whenever we walk over this Earth magnetic field, do we have a Micmac handy here? By chance? I think the people who know our company know that. Do we have that by chance? No? Okay. No, it's a Micmac handy. Terry, do we have a Micmac handy? Can I have it? I show you what that is. I manufactured a little device. The problem is we don't have an organ to detect electromagnetic fields. Thank you so much. So this is the organ. Unfortunately, it's not working. There's no battery inside, huh? There is a battery, but it's empty. Yeah, the battery is low. So unfortunately, I cannot demonstrate this to you. Do we have another battery? Nobody. Okay. I will do it with my own words. When you walk over the Earth magnetic field, you change the static into an impulse by moving. That's, by the way, why people, when they move, they have a better running metabolism, because they create an electromagnetic impulse which attracts the ions. They start moving, they start increasing the membrane potential, which then increases your ability to absorb nutrients, minerals, and oxygen, to produce more ATP in the mitochondria, and to get rid of the toxins, carbon dioxide, and water. Does it make sense to you? So if you keep your membrane potential on a high level, you always have a very high running metabolism. So you produce a lot of ATP. You actually have a healthy environment inside your organism. And whenever something bad is coming in, the body has enough energy to fight against this. And this is what we falsely claim is called self-healing property. You know, again, self-healing sounds esoteric. It's not. You know, it can be proven by physics. Self-healing means that your body runs always on a certain benchmark in order to fight against and defeat everything what's coming in by itself without external intervention. Right? And people who have a good immune system, well, they are not affected by a flu. Or if they are affected, it's a piece of cake. Right? The same with what we had to deal the last 2.5 years. I don't want to take the word in my mouth again. COVID, yeah? Yeah, exactly. COVID. COVID is the disease for the upper class. Corona for the lowers. Yeah, that's how I said it. I have Corona. No, I have COVID. You know? The problem with diseases like this is they create problems when the body is not ready to fight it. And we learned that. We just didn't do the correct steps, because now we put toxins inside our bodies, which makes the situation even worse, because we get affected by these toxins, and now our defense is getting weaker and weaker. And I'm looking forward to the next 10 years, what we're going to hear from science when it comes to Corona or COVID. You know, and the vaccinations which took place all over the world. What's coming out? By the way, science is always as intelligent and as dumb as now. This is also something we have to understand. You know, if we talk about how good or bad science is, we always have the situation now. And in maybe in 2 years, in 2 weeks, in 5 years, the situation is completely different again, because we figured out something else. So science is never right, and science is never wrong. You know, it's just a snapshot of now. I think we are clear about that. Maybe you didn't think about that yet, but it is exactly how it is. This is what PEMF does. Nothing more and nothing less. And now imagine you suffer from migraine. You probably have thousands, hundred thousands, millions of cells in your entire organism which are not functioning properly anymore because of whatever cause. Maybe a problem with a muscle, maybe a problem with a neuron in your brain, maybe a problem caused by by toxins, by whatsoever, you know, and suddenly your body is at some point not able to maintain its 100% functionality anymore. So a disease or a condition or a symptom shows up. The easiest way would be if we would address the cause of the symptom immediately. We could get rid of it probably within seconds, minutes, within a day, because we know what to address and where to address it in order to clean that situation up. Reality is different. We have millions and millions of people in the US. They suffer from chronic diseases. And the problem is they cannot heal themselves anymore because the cause is not addressed. So that's what we call disease management. Most of the people suffering from a condition are already in disease management, which is the most horrible thing, horrible word I can imagine. You know, I'm even it doesn't feel good to me to say that, but that's the truth. And disease management means nothing else. You have to live with it, and we make sure that we maintain the situation for you. And we do this with chemical intervention, chemical manipulation. So most of the people suffering from a chronic disease will never become healthy again, period. Because they are already in the disease management system. And do you think all these toxins you swallow, they do you good? Well, you should know better now. Right? What do you think, to which extent your body can deal with all that toxins? You know, can get rid of it? Probably not all of them. So more and more will sit in your system and they will cause problems. We call them side effects. And then we have a drug for the side effect, which causes another toxic reaction. Bang, 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 bang. Yeah? Good for business, bad for you. Huh? So, in order to shift that whole thing, we cannot deal with, the chemistry would be the wrong approach. We have to apply energy, because energy is shifting situations. Energy is regulating and not manipulating. And we often have the case, if somebody uses a PEMF device, for example, and was or still is on high medication, that everything becomes worse. That's what we call a healing reaction or a Herxheimer effect. It's, you know, when suddenly the body starts functioning again in regards to the metabolism, all these toxins which are already hidden in your system, you know, they get activated again because the body wants to get rid of it, and suddenly you feel worse. And of course you say, now I bought this device and it gets even worse. I don't want to have this anymore. Oh, you know, if I can tell you better, this is the best reaction you can get. If you use an energetic intervention on a chronic disease and you get worse at the beginning, congratulations. because your body accepts this an intervention and starts dealing with it. And of course, everything chronic becomes immediately acute. And this acute phase, which doesn't last long, but it's there, if you don't know about that, you would give up using this. And you would go back to disease management. You know, keep on going if you're in such a phase, because it will become better. Once the body is over that acute peak, it will start heal itself. And the symptoms become lower, you become better, and then you will figure out how it works. So, this is what a PEMF system does to you. Don't ask me if it works for migraine or for this. My answer will always be, remember our lecture, slide number 2. Okay, and now, this is how PEMF is represented in the global market right now. Because PEMF is trendy. PEMF becomes popular more and more. There are more manufacturers coming out with devices. And you have to understand, energy medicine, and PEMF in particular, is a quite unregulated market. On the other hand, we are dealing with energy. And if the energy is not applied properly, it can harm. You may not forget about this. And that's why it is crucial that we, as ambassadors of PEMF or as future users of this technology, we should know what we get. You know, and I will explain to you what a PEMF system has to contain of in order to do good to you and not to harm you or do nothing to you except stressing your credit card and taking time of your life clock for nothing. And yes, that's how I call it, the art of misrepresenting something extremely complex and effective in a very trivial way. Because there are these companies, they say, buy a PEMF device and get rid of your pain in 2 weeks. Buy a PEMF device and treat your migraines overnight. You know, I know the Americans like that, the quick fix. You know, no efforts, 100% results. That works perfectly with disease. Huh? Why I'm telling you this? Because if somebody gets a heart attack, it's well earned. A heart attack doesn't come overnight. You have to do consistently the wrong thing over a long period of time. Eating the wrong fuel, drinking the wrong liquid. I know there is water in alcohol. But you should not stress this. Right? So if you do constantly things wrong when it comes to what you eat, what you drink, how you exercise, well, eventually your heart attack will show up. That's only a result of what you did in the past. And our body is quite strong, so you have to do it over a long period of time. And then, surprisingly, it shows up, which is not a surprise. you know. And we are very motivated to go in this direction because it actually doesn't cost any efforts. And even the society and the companies, they taught us that things with sugar, they taste much better. So we take it without knowing what kind of damage we're gonna do to our organism. I give you a perfect example of something about PEMF, which I really experienced myself, and I find that so ridiculous. You know, there is this famous quote from Dr. Werner Heisenberg. He was a Nobel Prize winner. He did a lot of research in science with electromagnetic energy, and I find this quote all over the internet. It always says, Dr. Werner Heisenberg, famous Nobel laureate, once said, "The electromagnetic energy is the fundamental energy upon which all living organisms depend." Very powerful quote. Perfect marketing pitch for each PEMF company. Because it gives the non-educated society an idea of how powerful electromagnetic energy is. Correct? Very impressive. Huh? I was so impressed, I put this quote, 2012, on my website. So I said, that sounds cool. You know, if somebody reads that, that will give you a positive idea about what we are doing. And then, a couple years ago, I met Werner Heisenberg's son. He's a professor. A physics professor in Germany, a university, technical university in Munich. And of course, I was so intrigued, I said, can I ask you a question? I hear about this quote, which is all over the internet, which even I used on my website. Did your father ever say this? And he was laughing at me and he said, he never said this. You know, he never made this quote once. And I was so disappointed. Probably the same like you now. How can it be? You know? And this is a perfect example of how the internet and the exchange of knowledge works nowadays and how wrong this is. Because what you're going to do is, when you are interested in PEMF and you eventually go home and do your own research, you go on Google, you probably type in PEMF, and then you get results. Usually we are so dumb that we always take on the first page, the first 5 hits, which are mostly sponsored links because the people pay money to show up there on the companies, and then you click on that. And that's your first introduction to PEMF. And it all depends whether this source is reliable, or which is just a piece of crap, and they just sponsored the link in order to get you as a potential lead, and they will go after you to sell you one system. Or maybe it's a quite reliable company, who knows? You take on whatever you get first. And then this is your perception, and this is your education level about this technology. This is the reality. And unfortunately, we have a lot of these second-hand quotation, or I also call it the copy and paste mentality. When today a new company comes out, they copy the stuff from an existing company, and then they add their personal touch. So everything great becomes sensational. And it becomes more and more wrong. And you know, I did a lot of research. I researched 120 systems which are on the market now, which are in our field, you know. I will show you later on, but I can tell you 100 systems harm you because you get dirty electricity. This is fact, and nobody controls that. And it's not regulated. It's online sales. You didn't drop shipping. You didn't even know where they come from. And this is, you have to become aware that if you decide to apply something, specifically energy, to your own body, you better know what you're applying. Huh? This is very, very crucial, you know. And in this field, it's crazy, you know. So we are already with PEMF at a stage because of this misrepresentation of the technology itself that science looks at it as a still controversial, questionable topic, because when scientists read all the crap what is available on the internet, how you can believe that this is something reliable and something you can take on? You know, on the other hand, I can tell you, we have about 2,500 double-blind studies with PEMF with great results. But because of that misrepresentation, there is so much skeptics that nobody takes it on, especially not the classical medical field. A second reason why people always ask me why it's not in hospitals, why it's not at doctors. The main reason is because energy medicine is not yet taught in the medical universities. So how can you take on something if you don't have the basic education for it? This is the reason. It's not because that's crap or it's not working. It's because the education is not out. Huh? And that makes it even more complicated. And for people like you and me, for lay people, PEMF often sounds like a miracle cure because it helps for migraines, it helps for this and that and here and there. We will hear the testimonials later on, where you probably yourself say, how can this be? This is against my understanding, this is against my education, you know, because my education says there is a drug for a cure. And now you come up with this device and suddenly you say, but my system cures this and this and this and this. No, this system doesn't cure anything. You know, and this system does not care about you. Huh? It doesn't know your name, it doesn't know your age. It doesn't know whether you are suffering from a disease or not. It doesn't know whether you are in a relationship. But it does know one thing. If I somewhere in your system hit a cell which is not working energetically correct, I can help. And I am there. And then it depends what your body makes out of that. This is it. No more, not less. And physics is complicated. I had a nice chat with this gentleman here who does something really crazy. You will not believe who is amongst us today, and I'm so happy that I had a chance to talk to him. He's controlling rover on Mars. You hear about rover? He's the guy. He's sitting here. You know, from NASA. And I asked him some very stupid questions. And he gave me some very intelligent answers. Physics is complex, you know, and I'm into that technology for almost 30 years, and I'm not a physicist. You know, I just learned a lot over the decades I did, you know, and for me, those things make total sense. If I talk to you about how you're going to communicate with a device which is millions and millions of kilometers or miles away from us, every day, constantly, for a certain period of time, my imagination is over. I cannot imagine that, you know. And listening to him, he said, well, we just do it. It's okay. We know how to do that. We do this constantly every day for a certain period of time, and it works. Because that's another level of understanding. Huh? But it's very easy to deceive people when they have no education. You agree? And in terms of all the modalities, all the therapies which we know for medicine, it doesn't matter if it's out of the classical field, out of homeopathy, out of energetic medicine, energy medicine, it doesn't matter. The key to understand is education. Don't rely on these websites where products are presented, because when it comes to energy medicine, I can faithfully tell you it's all misleading, it's all wrong. and it's nothing validated and it's nothing verified. You know, ask questions. Ask, what do you really expose? Do you have a laboratory certificate which guarantees me electric safety and electromagnetic compatibility? If they tell you, we cannot disclose this information, well, thank you for flying Coconut Airlines. Go home. Don't touch such devices. Don't talk to such companies. You know, you need to learn to ask questions and not take everything for granted. And then we come to a better stage of understanding, but in order to do that, we need to educate ourselves. You know? So how can we educate us about PEMF? Well, we need to create an objective and a verifiable comparison of what's inside a PEMF device. In terms of what properties does it expose? What mechanics are built inside? What electronics are built inside? This is something which we need to know in order to figure out whether it's good or not. And there are certain properties, they are crucial for a PEMF device. And these properties are, I just read it for you and then I explain it. Waveform, intensity, frequency, mechanics, electronics, resonance, coherence. So we have some physical parameters, we have some mechanical parameters and electronic parameters, and then we have some scientific parameters. And those have to be gathered together, these information. And once we have that information from each device, from each technology, and compare it with the properties they eventually work, then we have the right basis to decide what we do. Am I right? Okay, let's start with the first one, the waveform. What is a waveform? Well, it's the way how an electromagnetic field is presented. Let's say it's created by the sender and it's presented and transported to the receiver. The most simple waveform is what you see here. That's what we call a sine wave. A sine wave delivers one frequency at a time. It's a quite stable and boring waveform. You know, advantage of a sine wave, it's very easy to create. So that doesn't need rocket engineering. It's quite simple to do that. You can even do it without a signal generator. You know, you can just take the incoming current. In the US, it's 60 hertz. In Europe, it's 50 hertz. And you just cut it in 10 pieces, and then you have 6 hertz with a sine wave. Very simple. Because 60 hertz, cut it 10 times. 60 divided by 10 is 6 hertz. Right? 6 hertz means 6 cycles per second. 6 single informations per second. This was the first waveform which was used in PEMF systems in the 80s. It was very simple to create and to manufacture, very cheap. The disadvantage is you can only send and introduce one information at a time. That means you need to sit or lie on one of these applicators for a very long time in order to get all the single frequencies, informations into your body to make sure that every of your 70 trillion cells understands it and does something with it. So that's quite not state of the art anymore. That was in the 80s, you know. Let's go to this waveform here. That's the most sophisticated what we know nowadays. It's called a sawtooth waveform because it looks similar to a sawtooth. A sawtooth waveform, by the way, all these waveforms are described in physics. You can Google them, and you will always get a nice Wikipedia entry where it's nicely explained what all these waveforms do. So they are scientifically researched, and they are mentioned in physics, Newton's physics. The sawtooth profile is very cool because it does not only create its own frequency at a time, it automatically creates also the even and uneven harmonics. So in simple terms, it creates, beside the carrier frequency, a lot of additional overwaves frequencies, top frequencies, in the same amount of time. So when we use this waveform, we not only apply one frequency at a time, we apply hundreds or even thousands of frequencies at a time. This waveform is very sophisticated. It requires top-notch engineering in terms of programming and creating this, and it also requires certain equipment. You need a signal generator in order to produce this. And this signal generator has to be built into your control box. If you don't have such a signal generator built in, you cannot create such a waveform. And for example, our systems, on the whole body mat, they work with a sawtooth profile, and not only with a single one, but with a triple one. So we tripled the sawtooth waveform, put them in a pulse package, and delivered them in the same time, comparing to one frequency at a time from a sine wave. So in comparison to this, you receive hundreds and thousands of single frequencies at a very short period of time. I think we did the calculation because people who have already our systems, they know we always ask you to use 8, 16, or 24 minutes. So if you use 24 minutes on one of our whole body applicator, and you would use a competitor system with a sine wave, with a more a simple waveform, comparing to 24 minutes, you would probably have to lie on it for about 5 weeks to get the same amount of frequencies inside. And this fellow here, this is what we call a square wave. Believe it or not, the efficiency of square wave was proven by NASA. There is a very, very powerful study which was done by NASA. The reference is on our website from that study. So you can, even the link to it. They exposed human cells, I think it was brain cells, neuronal cells, with square wave, and they figured out that with the square wave, the response rate of that cell was quite high. Let's say it in simple terms. Just don't go into details so much. And there are other studies out that claim and that they show that this kind of waveform has a very good analgesic effect. So this is very good for pain relief. Because with this waveform, because of its characteristic, because it has a very, very fast rise, a long plateau, and a very, very fast drop time, it addresses a quite efficient impulse to our hormone system, and it increases the release of endorphins, which has the effect of pain relief. And that's why this particular square wave is built in our applicators, in the local applicators, when you use a pillow or a spot. And the square wave is also good for faster wound and faster bone healing. That's all proven. So now you understand a little bit what the waveforms are. But now have a look. Believe it or not, still 98% of all devices which are on the market are using a sine wave. So from that 120, about 100, you can calculate it, 98%. That's about almost all of them still use a very outdated, old-fashioned sine wave, which means that those systems are not equipped with a signal generator, most of them. That means that they don't work efficiently when it comes to create a holistic effect on your whole organism, because you just don't get the amount of frequencies which are needed. And it's very cheap, and yet they cost $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 US for whatever reasons, I don't know. Huh? And I don't see these companies talking to people like we do nowadays, educating them about what's good and what's not so good. I don't see these companies even disclosing their information. If you look in an owner's manual, there is nothing out what they use inside. And this is not right, because you deserve to know what you apply to your own body when you decide to use this technology. So, to my opinion, those systems is no-go, because you will not benefit. About 1% of the system use square wave. We use it on every system, always with the local applicators, because it's just the most efficient application waveform when it comes to local addressing a PEMF field for health benefits. And then we have the sawtooth, 1%. I know only 2 systems in the entire world who expose a sawtooth wave. The other one, I can tell you, it's the QRS system. It is now known in the US as pure wave. If you Google it and you come up to them. However, the pure wave system is the copy of the old QRS 101 system, which was lastly manufactured in the year 2001. And the pure wave system, which you can buy nowadays, is exactly that system. So that's 24 years old, 23 years old. And it uses a single sawtooth, not a triple sawtooth. But at least it uses a quite sophisticated waveform. Other than that, only Swiss Bionic uses a triple sawtooth. Bingo. No other. Not one. Show me one and prove me that I'm wrong. I don't think so. So, physics again. We are not so educated, but if you take a look what a signal generator does, this is just a little animation. So, in order to transform a sine wave into a sawtooth, you need to have a computer-controlled generator who is capable of, you see that sine wave at the beginning, and now it's getting somehow compromised. It compressed, sorry, and then the signal generator adds more single frequencies on top of it. So we create out of one signal, we create a whole bundle within the same period of time. And this is the idea behind it, to utilize the same time frame for a lot of more information. Does it make sense? You get it? And this is more or less how a signal generator does it. That's engineering. By the way, the sawtooth is also used in music. Because of its ability to create even and uneven harmonics, it gives a very good composed signal when you listen to music. And so it does when your body listens to a PEMF field. I know it's tough cookies today, but you have to go through this. Okay? And you're allowed to ask questions afterwards. The next one is intensity. So, by the way, what is the difference between frequency and intensity? A lot of people mix that always up.
Timing and strength.
The timing and the amplitude. Okay, let's even make it more simple. Frequency is the content of the information. It's the content of the information what's inside. That's delivered by frequency. Intensity is the volume of the content of the information. It's how noisy or how calm we apply the frequency. Quick example, if you look for your favorite radio station, what do you first? You tune into the frequency. So once you found it, you get the content of the information. That's what the radio station provides you, right? So, and then what do you do next? You eventually adjust the volume. So, question, when you change the intensity, what happens to the frequency? It does not change. Very important message. So when you change the intensity of a signal, of a certain content of the information, you do not change the content itself. You just make it a little bit more noisy or a little bit calmer. Very important when we apply energy medicine. And when it comes to intensity, what is good on a PEMF device, how do we know that? Well, we know it from science. Because we have science which proves that when you apply an electromagnetic field with a certain intensity, that whenever it is within a certain range, it creates a good resonating effect. So the receiver answers in a positive way. And when it comes to PEMF devices, this window is between 7 to 8 and a maximum of 70 microtesla, which is, by the way, exactly within the range of the intensity of the Earth magnetic field, which is, depending on where we are on this planet, is between 35 and 70, 80 microtesla. It's usually a little bit lower at the equator and a little bit higher towards the magnetic poles of the Earth magnetic field. But it's a very weak signal. And I know you probably have no idea to deal with these numbers. Now we have the unit for intensity of electromagnetic field, it's Tesla. In the ancient times it was Gauss. Maybe the older people will remember. 1 Gauss equals 100 microtesla, just to give you an idea for the people who want to compare the values. But I give you a comparison because we all know MRIs. Who was ever in an MRI? I was. Okay, a couple of people. Remember, they set you up, and then they run out of the house. Yeah? They go in this different. They talk to you via walkie-talkie. I know I'm late. Sorry, Terry. Just a couple more minutes, okay? I came all the way from Switzerland. You give me this additional time, right? Okay, thank you. So those diagnostic systems, you know why the stuff is running out? Because the MRIs, they create a very, very high intense electromagnetic field. And to give you a comparison, those systems, they create field strength of about 1.5 to 3 Tesla, which is about, and now listen, about 100,000 times stronger than the average field intensity of the Earth magnetic field and the average field intensity of a PEMF device. 100,000 times. And if the staff who set you up would stay in this room with you, they would be well done in the evening. Because those devices, they create a very, very intensive thermal energy. And that's why it's not good to stay there. And they're very noisy, yeah? Bow, bow, bow. Remember? So the electromagnetic intensity of such a device is very high. So it is not good to use this for therapeutic reasons. It's only good to use that a couple minutes for diagnostics. And then we have the frequency. What frequency is good for us? Well, we know it from science. There's a very famous study from Dr. Rosade and Baldwin. They discovered that there is a biological window of frequencies where human cells express a very good resonating effect. And this frequency window is roughly between 0.5 and 30 hertz. That's why the current coming out of the wall, 60 hertz, does not do anything with your pain, because your body doesn't understand that. It does not resonate with it. And that's why the smartphone, which roughly gives you a carrier frequency between 800 megahertz and 1.3 gigahertz, does not do anything good with your body, because the body doesn't understand that frequency. And that's why the cordless home phone doesn't do any good for you, because we have 2.4 gigahertz. So it's even higher. On the contrary, a high frequency device at home Let's take the cordless home phone. What do you experience if you talk on the cordless home phone with your friend on a Saturday afternoon, speaking about what happened the last 4 weeks and what you're going to do the next 2 months? And time flies, and suddenly you realize I'm already 45 to 50 minutes. What's going to happen with you? Your ear becomes warm, right? And the reason why is because the cordless home phone, and by the way also the smartphone, they emit a very high frequency. And this high frequency creates thermal energy. It interacts with your tissue and it literally heats up your tissue. Yeah? If you do this on an ongoing basis, remember, you're going to earn your brain tumor. Because you do constantly things wrong. You constantly apply frequencies which are not within the biological window. And over time, they hurt you. And they create damage. And they create uncontrolled cell growth. We learned that. Remember this nice cell, you know? Now you know why things happen and how they happen. So, if you want to have a PEMF device which delivers you a health beneficial effect, make sure that the frequency range is between 0.5 and 30 Hertz. If you use a Swiss Bionic device, you can be sure that you get that. Very simple, because we exactly rely on this scientific data. And of course, the more of them within that time frame, within that range you apply, the higher the probability that your body responds to it. So we even use probability in our technology, which is fair, because even we admit that we don't know everything. We have a quite good understanding what kind of frequencies we should apply, but energy medicine, the science, is not as far to really claim that exactly this frequency does this or this frequency does this. And as long as we don't know it 100%, we're going to also use probability. But all based on this knowledge and on this basic information which we know from science. And I was always interested, why this 0.5 to 30 Hertz? Why do we react so positive on that? Well, if you look at nature, we are surrounded by certain frequencies. For example, one is quite interesting. It's the Schumann resonance. Maybe you heard about that, the Schumann waves. The Schumann resonance is the carrier frequency between the surface of the Earth and the exit to the stratosphere. It's beyond this blue line. That's where only the astronauts can still survive, because there is no gravity anymore, there is no oxygen anymore, there is more or less no electromagnetic field of the Earth anymore. So you need to have certain equipment to be able to survive in this quite hostile environment here. But here inside, the Schumann resonance, 7.83 Hertz, is a quite stable frequency. By the way, we know nowadays that even the weather is involved in maintaining and creating the Schumann wave, the so-called spherics, the lightning strikes. So we have an ecosystem, and this goes probably beyond every galaxy, we don't know yet, which is very, very accurately designed. And with very accurate numbers, and whenever these numbers fluctuate, the system goes out of sync, and we have a problem. For example, we have fluctuations in the Schumann waves. And there are people, they react on that. In German, there's a word. It's called wetterfühlig. I translate it for you. Feeling the weather. Those are the people, when there are strange fluctuations in the weather, they get headaches, they get migraines. Not everybody. And this is whenever this very, very tiny adjusted system, you know, it goes a little bit out of sync, and then those phenomena happen. So, but those frequencies, they are not, and you can see the numbers, not within the biological range. And that's why those systems, they don't do any benefit when it comes to electromagnetic fields, and they eventually harm you, which is another education lecture. And it's not the topic of today. The exposure and the effects of man-made electromagnetic frequencies. Today we talk only about the good ones. Okay, so the good ones should be within that range, 0.5 to 30 hertz. And remember the carrier frequency of the Earth magnetic field. I mentioned the numbers, 11.75 to 11.78. It's 100% within that biological range, right? The carrier frequency of the Schumann wave, 7.83, is 100% within that biological range. And then we even have the brain frequencies. Alpha, beta, delta, theta. Look at the numbers. All the brain waves compiled together are between 0.1 and 30 hertz. Some of them, we have some gamma rays, they're a little bit higher, but only with certain people. But you know, most of the brainwave frequencies that we emit out of our brain are within the biological window. So in other words, 0.1 till 30 hertz. This is the biological window a PEMF device should be able to deliver to you in order that you resonate positively with it. Does it make sense? So ask the people who offer you a PEMF device, what kind of frequencies do you expose, and how do you do that? Do you use a pulse generator, or do you just use the current out of the wall and hack the frequencies? If they say, I don't know, don't touch it. If they say, we do it through the current because we have no signal generator, don't touch it, because you're going to expose to dirty electricity, and that's going to hurt you over time. And then we have, if you look inside a PEMF device, this is how a cheap system looks like. They use coils. You know, we use coils to run current through and create a magnetic field. That's how electromagnetic fields are gained. And you find these coils in every PEMF device. The cheap systems, they use so-called insulated mesh wire. And this is how the coils looks like. It's like you know these speaker wires from the speakers you have. Maybe the older people remember, because now we only have Bluetooth. In the good old times when we had to twist them and to wire them, you know. This is actually the wires most of the companies use to do insulated coils. The problem with these coils is they are insulated, so their capability of creating induction, which is very, very important for transferring a PEMF signal from the sender to receiver in a very efficient way, the induction rate is very, very poor here. The advantage for those companies is it's very cheap. And those are the companies, they tell you, you have to take ours because our whole body mat can be rolled and can be transported easily, which is in fact correct, but don't expect a big health benefit when you use these devices, because those coils are not really the state of the art. By the way, these coils are from a company, the first letter is B. The rest I leave it up to you. I did quite some surgeries on these devices already, so I know what's inside. The only downside is I always have to buy them. So I have to invest a lot of money, you know, to get them. But I always like to do the surgeries to open them, you know. This is what Swiss Bionic is using. Solid uninsulated copper coils. Very expensive, you know, 100% copper. Copper is the metal with the least resistance when it comes to current flow. So we have the least loss of performance, and due to the fact that we have very thick uninsulated solid copper and wound in a way that we have a pretty clean surface, we have a very good induction property. And this is what you want when you use a device to achieve quick and sustainable results. This is state of the art. And then we have the pulse generator. This is a picture you should maybe manifest, because this is the difference on an oscilloscope between a dirty sine wave and a clean sine wave. On top, you see a sine wave which is run, produced, and gained by a specific signal generator. And the picture below, that's a sine wave which is gained without a signal generator, just by hacking the frequencies. And all the fragments you see here, this is dirty electricity. And this is what you usually get when you lie on one of those systems. And without knowing exactly what it does to you, I can briefly tell you, if no precise pulse generation is present, the applied signal is dirty and may even harm the user. So you need a pulse generator built in a system, ideally with a precise engineering software system. We use IoT, Windows, nobody uses that. And you need a proper conversion from a digital to an analog signal, because we provide you a 100% analog signal through the copper wires. And this is how we end this day today, the morning at least. I need to show you this because I love this video. This is actually a trial which was done in a Japanese laboratory. The idea was to explain resonance, which is a quite common term, but what does it actually mean and how we can relate it to a PEMF device. And this is a way to easily do this. I just have to ramp up the volume here quickly, hold on. So what you're going to see is, you're going to see 32 metronomes. You know what a metronome is? They use it in music, you know, to stay intact. And usually, pardon? That was the German metronome. Yeah, exactly. So a metronome usually never gets out of sync, right? Haha. Haha. I will prove you something else here. So what we see now, we see a trial. There are 32 metronomes placed on a surface. And the first metronome gets kicked on by a person. And then the other 31, they get randomly kicked on. You know? And you need to observe what's going to happen with the 32. And I just take it or give this hint to you. Imagine the first one is the PEMF device, okay? And the other 31s are your cells, okay? And I will show you the PEMF device. This is the PEMF device, the last one here, because it gets kicked on first. And then these two people, they randomly kick on all the others. So this is the PEMF device, and those are your cells, and you're just lying on this device, okay? The idea of PEMF is to create an impulse and to send an impulse which the cells will resonate with. So in other words, I try to force the cells to go into the same frequency that I expose, which never happens to metronomes, right? And you can see that's a chaotic vibration here. But miraculously, over the course of the next minute, those metronomes, they all tune into the frequency of the PEMF device, of the first one. Not everybody at the same time, but slowly but surely, they all do. And the interesting thing is, once they align their frequency with the sender, they don't change it anymore. You know, they stay within the same frequency. That's why a minute on a PEMF system is not enough, because not every cell reacts immediately. Takes some time, huh? But we have less than a minute on this video, and you can see already that most of the metronomes aligned already their frequency to the one who was kicked in first. You can, by the way, also see that the surface is starting to move, because the more items, the more metronomes vibrate in the same frequency, the greater the force is created around them. And now almost everybody's aligned. There's always this one guy. You know who that is? That's the person who asked for studies. I want to see the studies. You know, I don't believe you, I want to see the studies. Well, the answer will be, I will not show you the study, just keep going, because we eventually catch you. It's just a question of time. So, in other words, if you have resistance in your body with cells, it's not about that you don't catch the frequency of them and align them, it's just a question of time. And sometimes regulation needs time. Manipulation would be easy, because I just manually adjust him to the others, which I could do, right? But now you see, no chance. He has to follow, and now all of the metronomes align with the frequency which was initially introduced by this guy here. So, question, what happens when I stop this one now? What happens? Well, nothing. The other 31, they will still keep going. So in other words, if you lie on the system for 8, 16 or 24 minutes, and you finish your application, and you go up and you go walk, your cells will deal with that treatment for about 4 to 6 hours. So you invest only a fraction of time of the whole therapy actively. The rest, the body does it without you even noticing it. And that's quite fundamental and powerful, I tell you, because that's resonance. So now you understand resonance. This term I always say it, mastering a PEMF device. Because if you get all these properties, which we discussed now during the last 1 hour, if you get them together in a reasonable, intelligent way, so that all these single properties align together perfectly, then you reach a situation which is called coherence. And this is what the highest level of applying energy medicine describes, so that all single properties are intelligently combined into a package which creates the highest possible coherence.